Hello and welcome to Tea on Tights, a Great British. Sorry, I'm going to start that again. Welcome to Tea on Tights, the Great British Wrestling podcast for Great British Wrestling, as used to be featured on Body Slam, now it's featured on Jono's Podcasting Network and other Spotify and many, many more. I'm, of course, the Great British Attacker, Mr. Andrew Mwandy. To most, you'll recognize it's not Dan next to me, above me. It'll depend on where we end up when we do the editing. But I am joined this week. I'm very gratefully to be joined by my guest co-host. He is Dave the Mark. Yes, that Dave the Mark from Twitter. Hello, Dave. How are you? And welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk wrestling with it on any platform, especially when there's so much of it going on in the month of February.
Yeah, it's been an absolute killer month. The last two weekends alone have been fantastic, and we've still got two more weekends to go. And we've got two huge matches. One of the I would honestly think that Oku and Ospreay has to be the biggest match since Sabre and Ospreay, and I think it might be even
Yeah,
bigger. I
yeah,
do.
I'd say so. I think the like something that just like stands out for me is you see the ticket sales and how quickly the the little dots on the Crystal Palace map were turning grey when it was ticket sales night, and then I periodically check it like after just to sort of like see how it's going, and the tickets for that show have just gone so quickly. They've had to extend the allocation, and there's a really decent chance that venue sells out, which is an incredible achievement. I think there's an awful lot of drama around the last opportunity to see Will Ospreay in an independent wrestling match, but
Mm.
there's also so much like so many other more drawing things as well to it, as well as Ospreay. There's a great card there from a great promotion. But yeah, the Oku Ospreay match, given how good their first two matches were, is something to really sort of salivate over.
It definitely is, and their face to face very recently, and we'll get more onto that, was absolutely amazing. I know you were there live, and you were at Southampton recently, so we'll be talking about those two shows shortly. I myself, I was live at TNT Extreme Wrestling over the fourth and the fifth, or third and the fourth, no, third and the fourth, where they had the DOA, the Dead or Alive tournament, the Death Match tournament. I didn't go for that show. I'm not a deathmatch fan. That's Big Daddy Dan. He loves his deathmatch. I'm not a huge deathmatch fan. But I am absolutely stoked that Emerson Jane went on to win that tournament. I think she is a phenomenal competitor. Absolutely amazing. She had just come back from the weekend of doing the Nick Gage Invitational. She's beginning to get into a lot of death matches quite all over the place, all over the world right now, and she's a phenomenal talent, an excellent wrestler. Has she wrestled for Rev Pro UK yet? Like early on?
I'm sure, I'm certain that she has, not recently, but
No.
pre-pandemic and around the sort of like that kind of 2019 time. I'm sure I've seen her name on cage match lists when I'm doing my research for the stuff at davethemark.com. I saw her at the Impact show in Coventry
Mm.
at the tail end of last year. And she is like, it was really nice to see that there were some like British talents on there. I went to see Subculture and Leon Slater, and it turned out to be a special show because it was the one where Scott D'Amore gave Leon his contract. Um, but yeah, you can tell immediately she's such an accomplished wrestler and has got some like real pedigree to her. And it's awesome that women are getting opportunities to go into sort of like niche styles of like deathmatch wrestling, and it be
Mm.
something where someone can sort of like really make a name in the way that like a Charlie Evans has.
Absolutely, and yeah, she's got a phenomenal background as you say, a great technical wrestler, somebody who's really truly gifted in the ring. I think she heads up. Joe Hendry's school these days, actually, coaching the guy, the young talents coming out of Scotland and the Edinburgh area. But yeah, phenomenal talent. I know she had some really great matches with Danny Luna at Attack Wrestling. So it'd be interesting to see if maybe Rev Pro UK can get us in on the door there. Maybe Danny Luna have a word because they really did have some great matches. Later in the weekend, she did go on to capture the TNT Extreme Women's Tag Team Championships alongside Rio. Fantastic match against Lizzie Evo and Harley Hudson, who just recently debuted for Rev Pro UK. What did you make of Harley?
Oh, she was absolutely phenomenal. Bearing in mind it was the first time I'd ever seen her. She was in a six man tag, and she just like captured the crowd immediately. Like she's got so much sort of like spunk about her, and like the character work and the crowd engagement. It was an absolute barnstormer kind of. I always talk about like the coveted fourth spot on a Rev Pro card, the match before the interval, and it is like every single show that match delivers in spades. And their match, it went nearly half an hour, and it
Mm,
was and she, she's in the ring with Luke Jacobs and Leon Slater and Michael Oku, Danny Luna. Like there's people there that are going to take the spotlight, but absolutely she maintained it all the way through and made sure that she got plenty of shine in herself, through like her awesome ring work and character stuff. It was excellent. I was also really impressed with Riho last year when she debuted for Rev Pro at the Copper Box in the 10 woman battle royal. There's the image, it stays in my head of her doing the arms out pose with all the other women lined up around the ring watching her before Sky Blue made her entrance. She really kind of like took her spot and took her spotlight in that card on that card, and I'd love to see her back in Rev Pro. Um,
amazing
that's the
composure.
thing. There are so many great wrestlers that you just want to see as often as possible, but at the same time, without anybody sort of like losing the arc that they're on or the stories that they're working. But we're
Yeah.
very lucky to have such a talented pool of British wrestlers at the moment.
Absolutely, especially in the women's division, because Rio now holds the Progress Women's Championship, the ICW Women's Championship, the TNT Extreme Women's Tag Team Championship, and they captured the North Wrestling Championships this weekend. We'll talk about that in just a short moment. As I say, Rio, Harley Hudson, Emerson Jane, and Lizzie Evo absolutely smashed this one. This was a great match. Later in the night, because that was part of the Ignition show, which features a lot of the younger talent, a lot of the talents that are coming out of Liverpool right now. No, there are some really good young talents coming out of Liverpool and the Manchester area, and that's kind of where Ignition they have that, and then and that's a family friendly show. And then they have the over 18 show, which was fantastic, and that had Rio and Lizzie Evo tore the house down. Honestly, I think it was the best match of the night. It was an absolutely fantastic performance by both ladies, and they really did tear the house down. Lycos Jim also had a really fantastic match against La Rebellion, Bestia, Sace, and Mecha Wolf, and that was I saw their match last year at the same Merseyside Massacre show where they lost. That was a fantastic match. Again, this time round, picking up the victory. Really good match. Puts the TNT Extreme titles back in England as well because they La Rebellion held them for an entire year but didn't actually come back to the UK to defend them. But good for Lycos Jim to pick the win there, and that was a fantastic match. You also had on the earlier show, the Ignition show, Patrick Quinlan, and I'm sure I've butchered it. His name is Pud. Send Pud apparently on Twitter. Here he is, my first time seeing him. He's a 17-year-old lad. It was almost like seeing when I first saw kind of like Leon Slater. He and Jordan Oliver opened up the show to a crowd that was obviously tired from the two shows the day before and the late night before with the deathmatch tournament. Still come to the show, and they opened it up, and the crowd was so cold to begin with because it was people were just kind of tired. But by the end of the match, everybody gave it a standing ovation. It was just an
Nice.
amazing match. So I know both of those, sorry, all four of those weekend shows are going to be available on the Demand Progress Plus system. They did stream live on Progress. I didn't check it out myself because it costs extra at the moment to do so. But I'll definitely be re-watching the shows once they're up on the Demand service. Definitely worth checking out all four shows. There's more I could say, and I'm going to do a proper review of the two shows that I did go to later, probably for next week. But it was really, really good. One of the big stories that also came out with it was there's going to be a new partnership with the French-Belgian company Bodyzoy Wrestling, or sorry, formerly Bodyzoy Wrestling. They are now Banger Zone Wrestling. A fantastic group of performers. Great promotion. I've been following them on Triller TV, the former Fight TV, for about the last four shows. And, they've had some really big names on there. They've had the Speedball Mike Bailey's, Joey Janela had here, the whole GCW vacation thing over there for them. He held their top title for a few shows, recently being defeated at their last show by Zenza Volto. He also competed in Rev Pro UK at the Cruiserweight Classic Championship, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was in the British J-Cup in October, and it has a bit of a history with the company as well, going back to sort of like 2019 time, where he's done several shows. But yeah, really, really nice guy. Really, welcome back anytime in my eyes.
I tell you actually one fact that he is actually Callum Newman's debut match was against Senza Volto.
Was it really?
It
Oh,
was. I
amazing!
remember him actually telling me that when I had Callum Newman on
He
the
had an absolute belter with Speedball Mike Bailey as well.
yeah. Absolutely. But so they're going to be, I believe, three shows in total. They're going to be combining for with TNT Extreme going out to Belgium in April, and then Banger Zone Wrestling actually coming over to Liverpool in June. And I'm going to definitely be at the June shows because the new canvas should be ready with my logo printed on it. So I'm looking forward to having that. But yeah, that's going to be a great combination. I think the two promotions suit each other quite well. They both have the extreme division, and as I say, some really great talents, including Mike Del Vecchio, Agil Blanc, and many, many more. Alta Sombra, a lot of great talent coming out of that European scene and the French Belgian scene. But let's talk about Rev Pro UK in full. They had two shows now over the last 2 weeks as their lead in to high stakes at the Crystal Palace National Arena. 4th of February. I know you've got your website, you do the top 10 takeaways from most of those shows. So here's a good chance to plug it and then give us some of your thoughts on both of these shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite. It feels like it's been quite a short build up to high stakes. Uprising doesn't feel like it was that long ago. It's sort of mid
Mm.
December. Since then, there was a show at the tail end of the year in St Neots, which
I was at that.
um, well, yeah, I was also. We could have met in person.
We could have.
Yeah, which kind of ended up being sort of like a Mad Kurt tribute show in effect, and maybe some of the stories that would have been told them were chosen for another day. And then the Live in London at the start of January, a month wait before the Live in London at the start of February, and then Southampton this past Sunday. But it feels like they've done an awful lot with quite a short amount of time. The card that's built for Sunday looks like it's really well balanced from top to bottom. I think we've got one more match to be announced because Andy Quilden said on Twitter there would be a 9-match card, and at my count, we're on 8 at the moment. I suspect coming out of the finish to Live in Southampton, we may be seeing Richard Holiday once again. And it looks like we could be getting some form of tag match, 6-man tag match, maybe even a scramble match with Flash Morgan Webster, Cameron Kai, Shah Samuels, and Spike Trivet, which I think would be a really, really good addition to the card because I think there's always a danger when you've got 9 matches on the card to get the balance right between giving talent the time that they need to tell their stories, but also, avoiding the show going longer than 4 hours. And those sorts of like a match of that ilk would be one where, given sort of 10, 11 minutes, they could do plenty with it and free up a little bit of time for some of the stories. I mean, Ospreay and Oku surely is going to be, I can't imagine that being a short match. Their first match went 28 minutes. Their second match went 42 minutes. So there's definitely
they're going to be pushing the
there.
hour mark, I think.
You'd imagine so. You would imagine so. And the rest of the card, like I'm really, really excited for it. Both shows, I always say this: the 229 shows in London are the best value for money you are going to get in wrestling anywhere that I've come across, like globally. You get change out of 25 quid for your ticket, and you get like the best wrestlers in the world going hell for leather every time. Nothing is ever short of 100%. They've already announced Grizzled Young Veterans for the next 229 show in March, which just is, a statement of intent. And the matches that we've already had, like the standalone sort of matches of Suzuki versus Leighton Buzzard, are sort of like in column A, and then column B has all of your matches which are telling the stories which are building this show that's coming up on Sunday. It's going to be fascinating. I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the way Suzuki and Leighton Buzzard were able to lay out their match. I actually think they had a better match than the Suzuki matches recently on AEW. I really thought they actually put that together well, and very, very impressed. He gave Buzzard a lot more than I was expecting as well, so I was quite
And it's been really nice to see because I've been there for, I think, virtually all of Leighton Buzzard's matches in Rev Pro so far. Sadly, not the Ospreay match, which was his very first one. I hadn't been down to Southampton at that point, and I deeply regret that. But when he left, the last time we saw him, he'd just beaten Michael Oku by sort of one of those victories where it's a victory out of defeat because the referee overturned, I think it was Oscar Harding, overturned the decision because Oku didn't release the half crab.
They did the Bret Hart Jerry Lawler spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't see him again until this January. And I mean, I'm a big fan of Leighton Buzzard. I'm literally sitting wearing his merch now. I'm a big fan of him. And when he went away, I was desperate for him to come back, but he's come back even like 10 times better than when he left. I always felt like he was someone that knew he was brilliant and was determined to make sure everybody else understood just how good he was. And now everybody knows just how good he is. So it's not necessarily that he has improved because he was already top notch to begin with. It's more the fact that the crowd are welcoming in him like the top quality wrestler that he is. Your name is a town chants and those sort of like silly things like are long gone, and now it's more sort of like he's one of our own Leighton Buzzard, and there's a real like acceptance from the Rev Pro crowd there, and it's thoroughly deserved because he said from the first show in January he's going to be in Rev Pro all of this year. He's around to stay, so I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, he had a fantastic 6 month excursion with Big Japan Pro Wrestling, which I managed to speak to him before he went off, actually. So again, that was really nice. Uh, Lovely guy, and as you say, he for me for a long period he carried ICW on his shoulders. I think that he set a record that he's really proud of. That he defended the ICW in more countries than Drew McIntyre did. So he was like,
Oh wow!
got his little notch. I know. I remember when I started to watch ICW when it was part of the WWE network, along with Progress and WXW, and you could see early on, even before they really started pushing him, the first time he came out the curtain, I was just like, yeah, that guy's a born superstar, and he's really gone on to prove that, and he's done a fantastic job. I know he's moved back home to Bristol because he did move originally all the way up to Scotland to train, to learn, to perform for ICW, and I believe he's moved back down to Bristol so that he can be part of Rev Pro UK on a more regular basis. So, looking forward to see what he does. I know he's been making appearances for other promotions as well, and we'll be talking about his homecoming for Sov Pro at one point later in the episode. We also got to see the Young Blood, the first opportunity to see Young Blood.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say it's
Oscar
Oscar.
Louis.
Yes,
I'll
Oscar
go with yeah,
Ryute.
go with Oscar. You can't go wrong with Oscar. Oscar and
Os
Yuto.
yes. I remember when Japan closed down and Oscar had to go to back home and he went to Germany. He competed in WXW for like 6 months, working alongside Robert Dreisker and really showed a lot of, you know, early talent even back then, and to see him
Mm.
come back at the size that he's put on, Yuto looks he's very unique for a young lion. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Uh
tank.
Absolute tank and great tag team. Yuto especially had a great match with Luke Jacobs at the Southampton
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
Absolutely
Probably my match of the
fantastic.
night, that one.
Oh yes.
And the
uh
thing that it's something that I is it's another thing that I do really love about Rev Pro. They don't make you wait for the matches that you want. Mustafa Ali on Sunday when it was announced that he was going to come to the UK, and you just think Robbie X. Like that, that's the match. Robbie X versus Mustafa Ali, the best cruiserweight in Europe
mm,
versus one of the best cruiserweights in the world. Like,
yeah.
and there's no kind of like you trust that Andy Goulden knows what people want to see, and he knows who's going to pair up well. And I remember watching Tomohiro Ishii versus Yuta Nakashima. I don't know if it was this time last year, but it was in the long series of Young Lion matches that opened the New Japan shows. It was Yuto's like breakout match because it was one of those matches that you think is going to go 6 or 7 minutes, and it went about 15.
Mm,
And you start to convince yourself that this young lion's actually going to beat Tomohiro Ishii, and you have that suspension of disbelief, which we were all looking for. And I remember watching it then thinking, please come on excursion to Rev Pro.
mm.
Like, please come on excursion to Rev Pro. And the first person I want to see you wrestle is Luke Jacobs. And the first Yuta Nakashima singles match in Rev Pro is against Luke Jacobs. And it was absolutely excellent. Standing ovation in Southampton, and thoroughly deserved as well.
I know both Oscar and Luke Jacobs are going to be part of 16 Karat Gold for WXW in March. And I really hope we get to see those two clash off at some point as well. Because again, you just know it's going to be the perfect pairing, the styles, the size. It's going to be a great match. But I tell you what, True and Lacey really, really impressed me in that match.
Yeah, they are. Do you know what? I've got so much time for those lads because they put in the work. They are at every single Rev Pro show, whether they're on the card or not. The well, it really really made me happy to see that they're announced for high stakes because
Mm,
at Uprising, they sat in the crowd and they sat and they watched and they stayed for the entire show. they watched every single match, and I could see them from my seat, and I could see them like talking about what they were watching in the ring. And it's like, these are two lads who are putting in the hard work to get their spot and get what they deserve. And like now, literally only 6 weeks later, they're going to be on that card, and they're going to be wrestling in front of an even bigger crowd, because of just how well these tickets have sold. Like, there's going to be a different Crystal Palace this Sunday. And yeah, as much as I can't stand them and I hate them because they're terrible, terrible people pulling a mirror into the way of the Fosbury flop in Southampton. But yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of what they're bringing to the table, they're filling a really, really good spot in the tag division, and holding the fort down whilst the inevitable Greedy Souls subculture match kind of has to sit a little bit on the back burner while Mandrews gets fit again. Hopefully
Yes.
soon.
Yeah, True and Lacey. I used to call them the Power Rangers because they would they were the teens with attitude, and
Yeah.
if you know your Power Rangers lore, it was they needed some teens with attitude. So
I just
so
love
yeah.
how they garner such heat from the crowd,
Mm.
and it is. I mean, Mark True's decision to wear a hat to the ring and to like, and his choice of haircut, amazing heel work immediately. Just the reactions they get from the crowd, and something that I really love. Like, I'm a real kind of like details guy. I love how much they talk to each other in the ring.
Mm.
You know, they're constantly, especially Kieran Lacey, constantly talking, constantly working together, formulating their plan as the match evolves. And that's, that is what you would expect from when we take away the kayfabe element of professional wrestling. That's what helps you have that suspension of disbelief. Forgetting for a moment that it is a collaborative performance, and seeing that these two people are working together to get one over on the other two people.
Absolutely. Lacey has put on so much size in the last 2 years. When I
Yeah.
first saw him, I think it was probably in purpose. He was so small, but gee, he has put on so much size in the last two
And he
years.
is like proper legit as well, isn't he? Like,
Mm,
martial arts background and cage fighting. Like, he
yeah.
is a lad you don't want to mess with.
No, I think that's Mark True. Mark True's got the kung fu background, I'm sure.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yeah. Oh, Kieran. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Kieran Lacey's put on the size. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. True's the cage match, and the martial artist, and then yeah, Lacey's absolutely putting on the size, and that's, it's, you can see a lot of them are at the moment. Like, JJ
Mm,
Gow is definitely sizing up. Connor Mills is becoming an absolute machine.
mm.
Um,
Even Oku.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's it's all part of the fact that you're watching young men really, really grow into becoming world class performers,
Yeah.
and that is, something that is like really special to witness.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the big things about independent wrestling is seeing young guys and seeing them evolve and seeing them get bigger and better. I remember the first time I saw Leon Slater, it was at a Prime Wrestling show in Newcastle, about 100 people in the crowd. And I saw him not do a leapfrog over somebody, but just do a standing jump over
Yeah,
his opponent, he just a few more moves, and I'm like, yeah, there's something very, very special about that young man. And then he
yeah,
made his debut for North, and then he made his debut for Progress and for Rev Pro, and then he had that match with Mike Bailey.
yeah.
And gee, and since then, the sky's been the limit for him. Who else did we get? We got Elijah. He's been making a couple of appearances now for Rev Pro UK and
Yeah,
losing.
yeah, that's been really, really positive to see. He had a match with Robbie X in St Neots, and then the match with RKJ in London in the 229. Again, it's good seeing like the wealth of talent that's around. I know he's a regular in on the Welsh scene, and in New Wave. And it's great to see that these companies are all working sort of like collaboratively, and that talent feels comfortable taking on bookings from all different promotions.
Absolutely, yeah. It's great to see for the scene. So many great matches all across. Now we can't talk about it without mentioning obviously the face to face Michael Oku, Will Ospreay, and Amira. We saw passion and heat from Amira, obviously, throughout that promo that she delivered. Very well done. Will Ospreay was amazing as always. Oku was very, very good. And then the following week, we got to see Amira do her Queen Elizabeth
Yeah.
routine, and the Hulk Hogan routine. But yeah, she for me is, I know she's a very talented wrestler, but she is also the best valet in wrestling.
Oh,
Very.
she adds so much to Michael Oku's presentation,
Mm,
and you know that the the minute that the towel was brought up in the promo in the 229, when Ospreay said that his stipulation will be that although there are no referee stoppages, if Amira throws in the towel, that's the end of the match. She throws away Michael Oku's British Heavyweight Championship. I'm going to be sat at high stakes staring at that towel. Like, that is, there is so much story going into this match, and something tells me Connor Mills will that his story with Michael Oku is nowhere near finished. Whether that plays out at high stakes, whether it is that Oku retains and Mills wins the Revolution Rumble, I feel like these two men are going to be forever in one another's orbit. Um, but yeah, the promo, the 229 is a really loud place, but it was very, very quiet when Amira and Ospreay were talking, because they literally had everybody on the edge of their seat, just glued to them. And I feel like Oku as well, like, it was very much Amira speaking like her truth on behalf of them as a team, as a unit, but Oku played his part excellently. From everything, from the way he carried the belt, that sort of like old kind of carrying the belt, like Nick Aldis carried the NWA World
mm,
Heavyweight Championship, from the the attention to detail in how formal he wore, like the suit that he was wearing. He was a man representing a company, the company man representing the championship, and Ospreay just knows how to hit his buttons, and he knows how to make him emotional, and that's an emotional Michael Oku is that's potentially going to be his weakness.
mm.
And you know, he's an assassin for a reason, Ospreay. So he will look for any weakness to exploit. It's going to be absolutely fascinating.
Now, before we get into how that's going to go down, obviously we mentioned live in Southampton as well. We can't not talk about the fact that Anthony Ogogo had a very
Yes,
decent match against David
yeah, he
Francisco, and
did.
then obviously RKJ. Uh, I don't like people calling each other shit. I don't like the fans saying someone shit. I don't know what it is. It's never been one of my. It's but
No, I know exactly what you mean. You want to put over your opponent to
yeah,
put over your ability to defeat them. But I feel like with this storyline, it's the one time where it could work.
yeah,
I will say, I thought Anthony Ogogo, that was the best Anthony Ogogo performance I've seen before.
yeah.
And I do not think it's a coincidence in the slightest that he was in the ring with David Francisco, who is such an underrated talent. Um, like that, the minute that match was put together, I had high expectations for it, and it absolutely delivered. The image of a go-go laying over the Union Jack over Francisco whilst he was counted down for the count of 10 will live with me for a long time. And then RKJ and a go-go, their head-to-head, it did everything it needed to do. it confirmed that we're getting a match that I think we all knew was coming, but it also adds a little bit of spice. I do like the fact that although RKJ was sort of like negging a go-go for its wrestling ability, I do like the fact that he put over the fact that there's a very good chance that RKJ gets knocked out in this match and he doesn't win the wrestling match. And that really is a reminder to anyone that needs reminding that Anthony Ogogo is, a legit fighter. But for RKJ, it's not just about winning a wrestling match. It's about taking something from him the way that Ogogo took the Great British Tag League from RKJ. And more importantly, I always felt like RKJ was doing the tag league for Zack more than for himself, that they're a family where loyalty means everything, and Ogogo turned on them. So he's got something coming to him. He's got a receipt coming, and the outcome of that match I'll be fascinated by, because RKJ feels like him and Connor Mills and Luke Jacobs and Michael Oku. I hate this phrase. I absolutely hate it. But if we talk about the four pillars of AEW, if we're going to talk about the four pillars of Rev Pro, I think there's your four: Luke Jacobs, Connor Mills, Michael Oku, and RKJ. Yeah. Those four men, all three of them, you've got to feel it's just a case of which one is going to be built to take the belt off, to take the belt next, whether it's Oku or Ospreay. And RKJ defeating Ogogo feels like the right thing to do, but at the same time, I don't see Ogogo losing. He hasn't lost outside of AEW, I don't believe. If so, it's certainly not been a regular occurrence. So that will be an interesting one. I do think Luke Jacobs will get over JJ Gao. I think that JJ's on a trajectory himself, but he's a little bit further behind his trajectory than Luke Jacobs is. And I think Jacobs is now the big game fighter that everyone that's kind of further down the card has to step up to before, Luke Jacobs to Luke Jacobs to JJ Gale is Tomohiro Ishii to Luke Jacobs.
It's very much the Dan Maloney super fight season era kind of place is where Luke Jacobs is at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Mills and Zack Sabre Jr. is a very fascinating one. I've got a 229 beer on the line with one of my good friends, Kellen, who is a Rev Pro regular, who is absolutely dead set on the fact that he thinks that this could be a big Connor Mills victory. And this could be a real breakout moment for him. Zack has not lost in Rev Pro since 2020 when he lost to Will Ospreay. So if he does leave Crystal Palace with a W, it would be massive for Mills, massive for Mills's career. I don't think it will happen. I think Zack wins this one. I think Mills's day will come another day, because I also think if with Ospreay stepping away now, will Zack be the one to kind of fill that hole, or is it genuinely going to be a building up from the bottom and us seeing the British Heavyweight Championship stay within Rev Pro regulars in those kind of like four pillars? Again, hate the phrase, because when you look at the lineage of that belt, RKJ winning it when he beat Ospreay at the 10th anniversary show was massive, because prior to that, every British heavyweight champion since Sha Samuels, when Rev Pro first started, every champion, whether it had been like Colt Cabana to AJ Styles to Shibata to Tanahashi to Ishii, Suzuki, Zack Sabre Jr., Will Ospreay, it had been on a big household name. And then Ricky Knight Jr. wins it, and then Michael Oku wins it, with the Great Okan kind of helping kind of tide the ship whilst when Ricky got injured. It would be really, really interesting to see, because there's got to be a combination of what's kind of best for business, but also what's best for the talent and what's best for the long-term future of the company. But yeah, fascinating times.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I see Zack Sabre Jr. winning, going on to face Michael Oku at Revolution Rumble. And this is it, because Michael Oku, I mean, he has to win this match against Will Ospreay if he wants to solidify his run as champion, his, you know, for him to be that top guy, he has to beat Ospreay. It's the one thing he has not done yet. And so I do think Oku will come away with the victory. And I do think Zack Sabre Jr. will. And I think that will main event Revolution Rumble, with, as you say, someone like Connor Mills possibly winning the Revolution Rumble to earn his
Yeah.
spot at some
And do
point.
you know what I love about that? That little bit of booking there. Zack Sabre Jr. wrestled Michael Oku at last year's Revolution Rumble,
And he beat
and
him.
he beat Michael Oku, and that almost cost Oku the Rumble match, because I remember when he came out looking like a broken man, and that being a big part of that story, that the one-armed man, can he survive the Rumble more than sort of like dominate it and win it? When it was just him, Luke Jacobs, and Gabe Kidd at the end, there was, that was a real story upon itself. I absolutely love that. I hope Andy Corden is listening and is booking the exact thing based on what you've just said, because that's the perfect story for me.
There
I
is
do
one
think
other
you're right.
option.
I think that there was a part of me that thought there was a part of me that I was trying to think, where is the belief that Ospreay could win the title? Like, what are we gonna use
Yeah.
to? Because people, there has to be in the moment the belief that when Ospreay hits the I don't know, when he hits the hidden blade, when he hits the Oz cutter, if he hits Stormbreaker, and if Michael Oku was to kick out of it, there has to be the belief that he's going to get the pin. And
Yeah.
my thought originally was, could Ospreay win it and take the title to and wear it, not defend it, but wear it in AEW the way he used to wear it in New Japan? It was always on New Japan television. Kevin
Yeah.
Kelly always plugged Rev Pro on Demand. He always mentioned the company, although he never really defended the belt, except I think at one Wrestle Kingdom. And I thought maybe that could happen in AEW, although I think it would be to the detriment of Michael Oku. It might be
Yeah.
for the benefit of the company. But then when Ospreay said that if he wins it, he's handing it back to Andy, and it will be put up in the Revolution Rumble. That in itself, they can still absolutely get us hooked
Yeah.
on that as a possibility. But for me, that was my confirmation that without a shadow, Oku has to win this one, in the same way that Oku had to beat Great-O-Khan at Epic Encounter last year to win the belt. It feels like the right story to tell.
Yeah.
And in my time watching Rev Pro, I've not, although they always find a way to surprise me, I never saw Trent turning on Oku at Epic Encounter.
No.
Um, as a perfect example, I'd convinced myself that Eddie Dennis was going to win the Rumble. They always find a way to surprise me, but I always feel that the booking that is chosen is right for the stories they're telling. And this story feels like it goes with Oku picking up victory.
Yeah. There is another option to face him in Revolution Rumble, and that is, of course, Gabriel Kidd, especially if he picks up a big win against Shingo Takagi. That's going to be a great match.
Oh, isn't it just like that's one of those matches where I'd never considered it.
Mm,
Like when sometimes you see a match graphic and you just think, I never knew I needed that match. But God, I needed that match. That is it for me. I absolutely adore Shingo. I think he is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and I'm a huge Gabe Kidd fan. I have been since my very first Gabe Kidd match, because although I am fully immersed in Rev Pro, and I live and breathe it, I am still like new to British professional wrestling. My first Gabe Kidd match was High Stakes 2022 when he wrestled Francesco Akira.
oh my God, that was
And
great.
having never seen live British professional wrestling, having never seen Gabe Kidd or Francesco Akira, having never been a part of it, seeing those two men beat the holy hell out of each other, it absolutely had me hooked. And I always say that I bought a ticket to watch a Will Ospreay match live. And that night I went home and bought tickets for their next show because of Luke Jacobs and RKJ and Gabriel Kidd and Michael Oku and Aussie Open and all these people that were phenomenal on the night, where I realised, you know, I can go and watch these people in St Neots Priory Centre 25 minutes from my house for 18 quid. This is
Yeah.
insane. Like, who knew this was on my doorstep all these years? It's the greatest trick the devil ever played. I don't think it was convincing the world he didn't exist. It was convincing the world that only one wrestling company existed. And I
Yes.
was definitely a sucker for that narrative for a long, long time, thinking that WWE was the only product in the world. And when I fell out of love with that company, I fell out of love with wrestling.
Mm.
It's been a much more recent thing, me returning to it. Shingo versus Gabe will be not for the faint-hearted.
Oh,
It will be hard hitting, and it will be violent in the violence I love in professional wrestling. You don't need to hit somebody with a chair for a wrestling match to be violent. And that's exactly what this will be. If the story is going to be Gabe versus Michael Oku, I am absolutely here for it, because their previous two matches I was there live for. We had in Stevenage at the British J Cup, we had Gabe Kidd miss out on the championship, and that followed their match this time last year in Birmingham in the Mill. And that was an insane match. It gets massively overshadowed because the main event was Ospreay versus Luke Jacobs, which
yeah.
is one of the best matches I've ever seen, and I think I'll be saying that for a long time. But Oku and Gabe Kidd, I'll plug it now. If you haven't seen that match, it goes about 15 to 18 minutes. Watch it on Rev Pro on demand, and watch Gabe Kidd bully Michael Oku and absolutely dominate him in a way that I've never seen one wrestler dominate another. Like, genuinely, I feared for both men's safety sitting at ringside, because they were going at it absolutely hell for leather.
Mm. And then we should definitely talk about the women's championship match that's going to be on the night as
Yes.
well, because Sapphire Reed has really
What a
in
breakout.
yeah, what a breakout performance very recently. Those matches against Kanji were absolutely fantastic. I've been following her on Pro Wrestling Eve. She is a phenomenal young talent. I almost put her in like that Millie McKenzie position where you just like, yeah, that she's gonna be a big star.
He
Danny
is.
Luna is probably the best, maybe alongside Alex Windsor, women's wrestler in the UK, in Europe, uh, outside of the US. I mean, she's just phenomenal. Her and Alex Windsor definitely amongst the best, alongside Lizzie Evans, Emerson's, Kanji. So many great talent. But yeah, tell me your thoughts on that matchup.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I think Sapphire Reed, again, a bit like Harley Hudson, she just walked into Rev Pro, and it wasn't her debut. She'd wrestled in Rev Pro before. She'd had a couple of matches with Maya Matthews down in Southampton. But when she came to the 229 at the tail end of last year, for her first match with Kanji, she just walked in like she owned the place, and like, that's what you need to do. You know, you're in quite a hostile environment, in the sense that, I feel like Rev Pro crowds will absolutely get behind people,
Yeah.
but there's a real high standard. There's a real high standard to meet, and she absolutely did that. I loved her first match with Kanji. I loved all her character work that she did. Her timing, not just of her wrestling, but the timing of her character work is sublime. There's a couple of moments that stick with me. Kanji leaning in for the handshake, and her giving her the finger and rolling backwards out the ring was absolutely beautiful. When she attacked Kanji in the next show, when it was Mercedes Blaze and the Mercedes Blaze and somebody versus Danny Luna and Kanji. I'm sure that was the match, with Alex Windsor on commentary, and Sapphire Reed had been on the merch table, and it felt perfectly natural. Just a young wrestler there, kind of supporting the company, and she leapt off merch and came and attacked Kanji, and just the way she garnered the heat from the crowd, just standing there lapping it up.
Yeah.
It really is excellent. But their 2 out of 3 falls match at the start of the year in the 229, that was the match where I really realised that all the things that I've seen in Sapphire Reed that I really, really like are just the tip of the iceberg. Like that was the longest match I've seen her have. She's in the ring with Kanji. I think Kanji is one of the best in Britain. But it takes 2 to tango, and no one is that good that they could carry somebody in a 2 out of 3 falls match unless the other person was of equal standard. And that was a really probably my favourite favourite match of the night. Bearing in mind that was a show that had Gabe Kidd versus Gabe Kidd versus Robbie X on it. It had the Michael Oku, Holly Hudson, Leon Slater, Luke Jacobs, Danny Luna, 6-person with Jordan Breaks, who was the 6th person there. There was so much on there. Trent and Connor Mills's first match of their 2 matches that they've had recently. Worth again plugging, if you haven't seen Connor Mills versus Trent Seven from the last Live in London, which I think was Live in London 82. I'm certain it was. It was the one at the start of February. If you haven't watched that match, the coveted 4th spot on a Rev Pro card, trust me, it's a perfect spot for the best match of the night. Go and watch that match because it absolutely tore the house down. And if you want to, there's a nice article on it on daveformark.com.
Go check that out.
Cheap plug.
Yeah, we're gonna go back and actually talk about Dick Vacation and Cameron Kai. Richard Holiday.
Oh,
What did you
yes.
make of Richard Holiday? I've always been a big fan of Rich. When I watched MLW back in the day, and it was the Dynasty with Hammerstone and MJF. Now, of course, he kind of got slightly overshadowed by MJF, big personality, and by Hammerstone, the great look. But he still managed to hold his own in amongst those two. He still stood out. He was still really good in the ring. He looked great. He could talk great. Maybe not as well as MJF, but he still could be great on the mic, as you saw at live in Southampton. He
Yeah.
does garner heat very well.
He really, really impressed me. I'd not seen a Richard Holiday live match before. I'd seen him in MLW a little bit, but never really followed the company more than just sort of like the odd ad hoc like YouTube show. He has everything. Like he has the look, he has the delivery on the promo. His in ring was really, really solid, and in fact, I hate the word solid because that's often used as a negative. It was more than solid. He had the loudest reactions of the night from the crowd. Whether or not that was fully intentional. For those listening that haven't seen the show, he came out and talked about how he has seen British wrestling before and he knows that British wrestling fans just like to pop each other and just like to get themselves over. And therefore, he challenged the crowd to come up with a unique chant for him, which prompted the crowd to spend the entire match coming up with unique chants for him. It was, I mean, if you can, I can often see myself when I watch the matches back live on demand. I spend a lot of the show laughing because you can't not laugh at the some of the ridiculous things that are said. But I felt sorry for Cameron Kai, if I'm honest, because that was a big moment for him. He got a big victory, and I will say, as the kind of the energy in the match picked up, and as Cameron came into his own, he started stealing pockets of the crowd
Yeah,
back, and there were big Cameron Kai chants. And it was a breakout victory for him. It wasn't one that I predicted. I assumed Richard Holloway was coming over and getting over and going over. But it was a big win for Cameron. And I just felt that the crowd probably took things that little bit too far away from him. But at the same time, even Andy Quildan and Gideon Gray said it on commentary. They did what he asked them to do. And I tell you what, he played it brilliantly.
yeah,
He played it absolutely brilliantly because he responded to the chants. He didn't just ignore them. You know, if he didn't like them, I assume that's what he would have done. But he built it into the match as well. There was for a long time he had one lad who was one lad Hayden in Southampton who was his one fan, and he was interacting with his one fan. And even when he lost the match, he went over to his one fan as if to be like, "What went wrong, my one fan?" And it was it was all good fun,
yeah,
which would have been fine if the match was designed to just be a fun match.
yeah,
Had he been wrestling Lord Gideon Gray, it would have been perfect. Had he been wrestling someone whose kind of story and trajectory, maybe like a Sean Jackson,
mm,
double action, Sean Action Jackson, a perfect example of someone who could have had that match, could have lost to Richard Holiday, and there could have been all that fun surrounding Dick Vacation and everything else that relates to the word Dick. But it was Cameron Kai's moment, and I thought like
yeah,
it went away a little bit there. And to be fair, Rev Pro and Richard Holiday could, you never know what to expect and how much a crowd's going to take it. We all remember Hardcore Country.
yes. Oh God.
We wish we didn't, but
That
sometimes
made me
that,
embarrassed to be a British wrestling fan. That one,
yeah, it did me as
yeah.
well.
I
It
had
took me
right pop
completely out of
ons.
the match, and I felt I just
I
felt so sorry for Alex Windsor and Hyan and Mickey James because they were putting on an excellent match.
yeah,
Not that you'd know because the crowd reacted to a clothesline the same way they reacted to a finisher, which was to just shout hardcore country. But that is unfortunately it's kind of part of the nature of performing in bigger venues where you're going to have some fans coming who are there maybe for one match or there for one person or there because they happen to be in the city for another show that weekend.
yeah,
Sometimes that will happen, and I always, whenever I'm at a wrestling show, if the crowd are going one way and it's not the direction I think it needs to go in, I will just try and be the loudest person I possibly can shouting in the other direction. If that is making sure that JJ Gow got the JJ Gow chance at Crystal Palace when everybody wanted to cheer for Zack Sabre Jr., or whether it was screaming Cameron Kai as loudly as I could on Sunday to try and break the Dick Vacation chance. Very, very frequently I go into work on Monday with no voice.
yeah. I get that sometimes. Yeah, it's going to be a excellent showcase for Rev Pro UK this weekend for British wrestling as a whole. As you say, it's closing in on around 4,000, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't counted, but I believe I may be wrong. I believe the venue holds around 3,000 the way it's set up the way it's normally set up for a wrestling show.
Yeah,
The Royal Quest 2 that was held in Crystal Palace, it was 2 nights.
yeah,
If I remember correctly, the first night that had FTR and Aussie Open on it did 2,200. And the second night that was headlined by Zack Sabre Jr. and Naito was about 1,900, the Sunday night,
yeah,
having a smaller crowd. Anything that's around that number or higher must be seen as a huge success. But I do think it is higher than both of those, just from simply looking at the seating map. I went on there earlier just to remind myself where I was sitting. It's the classic wrestling fans' anxiety of as the show draws clearer, making sure you've got everything that you need and you remember where you're sitting and what time the show starts and how long it takes to get there. And I was really, really amazed at just how few tickets there are still available. So
Indeed. I know they're going to have, of course, two huge shows in Germany later in the year over in Berlin. They're going to be working alongside the German Wrestling Federation, GWF. They were actually in action on the 4th, I believe it was, a couple of weeks ago. And their show is available to stream free on YouTube. So if you want to get to know who Rev Pro UK are going to be working with in Germany, I would definitely check that out. I would certainly highlight a match between a gentleman by the name of Crowchester. He took on Mike Bailey in just, and Mike Bailey's always great anyway, but him and Crowchester had an absolutely fantastic match. Smashed it out of the park. The current German Wrestling Federation champions, of course, are going to be well known to Rev Pro UK fans, and that is Sunshine Machine. They took on the NXT UK team of D Familia, Metahan, and Rohan Raja in a very, very good match. I would assume Crowchester will probably face Michael Oku on the big show. Maybe Connor Mills, depending, because you've got Mike Di Vecchio is the heavyweight champion in the German Wrestling Federation. He had an excellent match against Yoichi of Pro Wrestling. Now we're currently working with Progress in the UK at the moment. It's a great show. There's some other great matches on there. I know Peter Tahani is on the card, and anybody who watches the show has known I've been a huge, big fan of Peter Tahani for a long time. That is somebody I'd love to see come over a bit more into the UK, especially for promotions like Rev Pro UK. Very, very talented young Hungarian performer. But Fast Time Mudo, Maggot, also on the card. Definitely people worth checking out. As I say, that's available free on YouTube. Just YouTube GWF or the German Wrestling Federation. It'll come up as the first show. Well worth watching, especially for the free matches that I did mention there. If
lots of
we
familiar names there.
Yeah, indeed. The UK guys, they're all over Europe at the moment. The same weekend that uh, Sunshine Machine defended the German Wrestling Federation Championships, they also run the Body Slam Tag Team Championships over in Denmark. So they were very, very busy that weekend, traveling from Denmark to Germany in quick succession to have two great matches. Uh, you've got WXW as well. That's available. Two shows that are now available on their WXW Now service include Dead End 2024. Have to shout out a match between The Rotation and Leighton Buzzard, who
Oh,
absolutely brilliant match. It was a really classical European style wrestling matches with lots of back and forth, some great wrist locks, obviously with a new school flavor. Uh, and but it wouldn't have looked out of place on a WOS show. It really wouldn't have looked out of place on World of Sport. It was a fantastic match. Rotation picking up the win. Great match. Hope to see those two go at it more often. Leon Slater had a chance to qualify for the 16 karat gold, which is, of course, probably the biggest tournament in European wrestling. Unfortunately, he came up short against Mike DiVecchio. It's a 15-minute, high paced, super intense match with one of the best finishing sequences I've seen in a long time. Mike DiVecchio, he won the TNA gut check. He's about 235 pounds, but he throws himself around the ring like he's a cruiserweight at times, hitting Hurricane Ranas, doing top rope suicide. he's a phenomenal athlete, and him and Leon Slater really had a fantastic match. I haven't finished the whole show yet. I'm only halfway through it, but Luke Jacobs and Michael Oku are both set to be part of this year's 16 karat gold tournament in March, and I'm sure I'll be talking about it more in later episodes. But other than that, you've got, as I say, Luke Jacobs, Michael Oku. The one called Manders is going to be there. El Helio Dr. Wagner Jr. just became the Noah champion. He's going to be part of the tournament, as will Gringo Loco. Uh, Joseph Fennick Jr., who is actually Senza Volto unmasked because he has now been unmasked in WXW, was one of the greatest stories I'd ever seen. Well, I was 2 years ago, I was at the World Tag Team Festival, and it was Senza Volto and Gil Blanc versus Icarus from the Arrows of Hungary and Robert Dreisker. And it was a match that had no right to be as good as it was. It far exceeded all expectations for the final of the tournament. But Gil Blanc and Senza Volto won the match when Ambos unmasked Senza Volto in the ring. And rather than just usually covering up like they always do, he just stood up and just went, no, bugger it. I'm going to go all unmasked. He got unmasked, I think, a couple of months later again. And that's when he finally just said, right, that's it. I'm no longer a masked superstar in WXW Germany. I know he still wears the mask for some promotions, and other promotions where he's already been unmasked, he now wrestles under Joseph Fennick Jr. Gil Blanc is going to be part of the tournament. He had a great few months in All Japan Pro Wrestling and was the first independent wrestler that Ali actually took on.
Oh, amazing on the world tour.
Yeah, his first match was against Gil Blanc for, I believe it was APC Catch in Paris. Great performance. The other one that's been put up there recently is their Road to 16 Karat Gold. I haven't had a chance to watch this yet, but I know one match involved Yuto Nakashima, Maga Lavaniel, and Icarus vying for a spot in the 16 Karat Gold tournament. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes. I know that Baby Allison and I believe Stephanie Mays faced off each other for a spot in the 16 karat gold tournament as well. I do know who won that, and it was Stephanie Mays, and I look forward to seeing how she gets on. She's now the third woman to compete in the 16 karat gold after Lou Fisto like 2 years ago and Masha Slamovich last year. So
Awesome.
that's great to see. And I know there was a great tag team match between Peter Tahani teaming with Oscar against Gil Blanc and Mike Di Vecchio. Let's move back to the UK. North Wrestling had a great show very recently that was headlined by Leon Slater and Michael Oku. And as you said, you mentioned it earlier, this was the night before Michael Oku had to go back to Southampton, and
Yeah.
the day after Leon Slater had that match with Mike DiVecchio in Germany. World traveling, country spanning superstars.
Yeah. I mean, you just think getting from Newcastle to Southampton is probably equivalent journey time as getting from Germany to London.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's these guys are absolutely putting in the graft, aren't they? You know, just following them on social media and seeing how often wrestlers are flying from one country to another, getting in as many matches over a weekend as possible. The number of shows that are running in the week as well. It really is. I know it's such a cliche term, but it really is a great time to be a wrestling fan, and really does feel like there is a boom in wrestling. Like it's either happening now or we're on the cusp of it. I feel like it's already started. Um, we've got
absolutely.
we've got so much outside of just those sort of like big 3 or 4 companies around the world that sell out 10,000 seater stadiums and places that are even bigger than that. There's so much variety, and just hearing you reel off like all the different promotions there around Europe, it's phenomenal, and it's great to see that talent is getting an opportunity to really showcase.
Absolutely. You made me wonder. I wonder if Michael Oku actually flew from Newcastle to Southampton.
I don't know. What I do know that he was the last person to arrive for the Rev Pro show, because
What's
we gave him a bit of banter as he arrived. I think the doors opened at 4. I would guess he got there about 3:30.
Yeah.
Um, and for any other Rev Pro show I've ever been to, he's always one of the, you never see him arrive because he's always there early doors. But yeah, he said himself, he said Newcastle's a long way away, and it really is. So yeah, I'd imagine there must have been flights, but then, even with flights, you've still got the ball ache of the travel from. Um, so yes, yeah, we're a small country, but we're there. Wrestling does tend to happen on the outskirts of the country, around the coasts, and in the furthest north and furthest south and east and west cities.
Absolutely. A favorite of the TNT's channel made his debut for North Wrestling during the show, which was Ian Skinner. He actually debuted against Joe Hendry. We've always been big fans of Ian Skinner. He's a great personality and he's fantastic in the ring. When I had Leighton Buzzard on the show, he put over Ian Skinner as the guy to be watching coming out of Scotland. He's actually British, but he went over to Scotland to train under Joe Hendry, and I think he's recently moved down to York. So, yeah, if you're listening, Andy, can we get Ian Skinner in Rev Pro UK? You won't, I guarantee. Michael Oak will approve. Will Cruz took on Amir Jordan on the card. Two big Will Cruz, obviously big heavyweight. Had a
Yeah,
couple of matches for Rev Pro UK. Would be nice to see him come back at some point.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I know that Emerson Jane and Rio defeated Lycos Jim to become the North Wrestling Tag Team Champions. So that's another belt for Rio.
The belt collector.
She really, really is. North Wrestling is usually available via their Patreon on YouTube, or you can wait and see their shows also available on the former Fight TV, which is now Triller TV. So that show will be available coming soon. There's a young man that I'm very excited about called Henry Faust on the card. He's looks to be a great competitor. Reese and Rogan are a fantastic up and coming tag team out of the Yorkshire area. Yorkshire Tough alongside Hardman Dan. Natalie Sykes is a great young woman performer coming up in the North Wrestling scene right now. She's kind of becoming the person that they're building around, and she's a fantastic performer. She teamed with Session Moth Martina against the Landed Gentry and the Postmodern Sick Boys, which is Rory Coyle and Liam Slater, who's very underrated wrestler, Liam Slater. Happened, I believe, last weekend was Pro Wrestling Chaos 6 session. And I know that Connor Mills, despite not being booked, him and Gio seem to have weaseled their way, and now he is the king of chaos. And I really want to see how that went down. Pro Wrestling Chaos are available. I can't remember. They do have an on-demand service that ties in with New Wave Wrestling and Attack Pro Wrestling is one of the ones I tried to sign up for it, but I had issues with for some reason. I don't know if it was because it might be like a pivot share one and you can't have the same email. I had issues. So Pro Wrestling Chaos, get in touch with me. I want to know how to sign up because I would like to see this show that also featured the Blockbusters, a young up and coming tag team that looks very impressive. Nico Angelo is a young man who is has made his Pro UK debut. The Welsh
Yeah, I saw him
team
up in Sheffield, 2022, I think. the show where Shota Umino wrestled Pac was my first time seeing Nico, and he'd wrestled for Rev Pro a few times before. Someone that I'd love to see back there because he's such a talent.
Very talented, high flying wrestler. He's been doing very well in TNT Extreme, but it's good to see places like Attack Pro Wrestling. I believe he is now the Attack Pro champion. He
Yep,
defeats, so that's great to see performers like himself getting an opportunity, getting a chance to shine. As you say, very talented. Wild Boar teamed alongside Flash Morgan Webster against Joseph Connors and Tate Mayfair. They've been a team called Severance. Kanji was also on the card, as well as a few others. I know Charlie Sterling. The main event was supposed to be Charlie Sterling and Eddie Dennis for the King of Chaos Championship. Charlie Sterling, a very another guy who's so underrated as a performer, just very, very talented. And I was really happy to see he'd become the King of Chaos champion. I'm disappointed to see that he's lost it already.
he's a
So
guy who's like I say, I'm relatively like new to British wrestling, but I'm a bit of a historian by trade, so I do like to go back and delve into the archives and watch things. And like Charlie Sterling is a name who's been on the British scene for a really long time in lots of different companies, and has been part of all sorts of different tag teams, reinventing himself, but always kind of staying true as well to his style and his approach to wrestling. I think he's a really sort of top talent and someone that's it's good to see representing lots of companies at this stage.
yeah, he had a long tag team run alongside Joel Redman. I think they were
Yeah,
about four-time champions at one. Uh, yeah,
yeah. It felt like for a long time the Rev Pro on Demand archives that I've kind of trawled through, they were a dominant tag team for a very long time. Joel Redman again, someone that's nice to see that is
still
still
about.
active.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very, very talented performer. I always thought he could have been the next British Bulldog, given his size, his strength,
yeah.
as
I mean,
well as his
he's
agility.
like a
Uh,
genetic freak, isn't he?
Yeah, not quite sure why he never took off, but yeah, phenomenal, phenomenal wrestler. Because he's got the British style down, but he's got that athleticism and he had that power as well. Yeah, great performer, and I know he's been about. ICW are in a new era under new management now as well, and I believe that kind of kicked off recently with the Square Go to 30-person Rumble, which I believe was won by, oh, he's a deathmatch wrestler, and I've lost, Clint Margera,
Okay.
because it looks like our ICW's next show is going to be Clint Margera versus Jack Jester in the first death match in a long time for ICW. So I think they're going to try and get back to some of their roots and live up to that insane championship wrestling name. They've lost that I think ICW suffered more than any other promotion when it comes to NXT UK, and it absolutely gutted their main event stars when you took away Coffee, Wolfgang, Noam Dar, and as well as the women, Alba Fire, of course, and Dawn, oh,
Isla Dawn.
Isla Dawn, who's
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. But they have got a crop of young talent there that are someone like Craig Anthony is very, very impressive. I can see him becoming a big star alongside guys like Theodoros. Has been very, very impressive. Angel Hayes has become a standout star in the women's division for them. Shaman Nay has been a breakout star in many, many ways. Jason Reed is another young performer who I think has got I have got a lot of time for. Very talented young performer, and I haven't seen him for a while. But Daz Black, I know he had a great match against Will
yeah.
Ospreay. he's again a talent that he's very, very exciting young talent. He's somebody I think he could be Scotland's Will Ospreay if they if he pushes himself. Very, very
Also,
talented
a
kid.
devilishly handsome fella, isn't he? Which is
Yes.
never going to do him any harm at all. We had him wrestling Driller Maloney, Dan Maloney, at the 229.
Mm,
Middle of last year, I'd say maybe April, May time. Very, very impressive. Just one of those people that you see the one time, but you remember for a long time.
yeah,
So
absolutely. So hope
sometimes it sounds like ICW going through a bit of a rebuild kind of phase. And I
yeah,
suppose it's like, you know, that for sort of surviving the pandemic must have been incredibly difficult for promotions. And
yeah,
on the back of NXT UK starting, and now NXT UK being no more, there's more talent available than there has been for a long time. But at the same time, then it must be really, really difficult to be able to find your kind of your regular roster that you're going to be able to build your brand around,
yeah.
um, especially when um, you are a company that is so much further away than many of the other British companies.
Yeah, I know Ashton Smith performs quite regularly as well, so he's kind of got that name as well as Kenny Williams. Of course, he had that great run towards the end of NXT UK, and they're the they're the names that they've got, and they've got a bunch of guys around them. I can see him being, I definitely see him rebuilding to where they once were. It's going to take some time, but I think they can do it. There is enough young talent there. Let's quickly just run through some big shows coming up across the country before touching on the big progress show at the end. So Pro Wrestling Chaos and New Wave Wrestling have actually got a show. When we release this tomorrow, the show will be today. Thank you. There's some great matches lined up. Leon Cage is a young performer that New Wave have really got behind.
Yep.
16-year-old martial art background, big lad. Certainly one of yeah, big paws for a young lad. So he see
Gets very high praise from my mates Spike and Jack, who go and see him in New Wave regularly. A couple of the wonderful Southampton lads. Yeah, there's a lot of love for Leon Cage in New Wave.
Yeah, definitely so. He's going to be in the main event against Flash Morgan Webster and Nico Angelo. Danny Luna is going to be taking Nina Samuels. That's going to be a great match. Connor Mills will be facing off against Wild Boar. As I say, New Wave are really building something. That's Brendan and Danny have really built something with New Wave Wrestling. I remember we had Brendan actually on the show as he was starting New Wave Wrestling, and we had a great conversation, and he talked about how his vision and what he wanted to do, and they've done that, and they've done it in space. They've probably achieved a lot more than they probably thought they would have achieved at the time. And they've got a 5-day training camp coming up on the 29th of April to the 2nd of May. If you're a young wrestler, if you're listening, if you're a young wrestler, go to that training camp
Oh, good
because
Lord, do.
absolutely do. I think it's something they picked up from the guys at Passion Pro, the Arrows of Hungary. Last year ran a Passion Pro training camp over in Hungary,
Yeah.
and Danny and Brendan were actually guest coaches during that 5-day stretch with Robert Dreisker as well. So I think they picked up a few things over there, and it's great to see.
Just
If
like
you
phenomenal, like just an opportunity to put over Danny Jones and Brendan White, like the opportunity to, in fact, add in Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews and Wild Boar, all of those guys that are working on that Welsh scene. I wish I lived closer.
Yeah,
I really do, because there's the reputations those guys have, and Danny as well, with working with women, which I know Boar does quite a lot of. The reputations they've got for the sessions that they run for trainee wrestlers is absolutely second to none.
Mm.
Um, Top talents, and yeah, I think that would be for anyone looking to get into wrestling. That would be, there isn't anyone in the UK that you'd learn more from than those guys.
Absolutely not. And then, of course, you've got Danny Luna also there to help coach women only classes at times as well. So they've really put something together down there. And as you mentioned, Brendan and Danny, great, great guys. If you're in Birmingham on Friday, you could go to Kamikaze Pro for Over the Top 9. Man like Doris defends his Kamikaze Championship against Amari, two very, very talented performers. Sunshine Machine defend the Kamikaze Tag Team Championships against the cheeky little buggers, which is Alexis Falcon and Charles Crowley. They've had some
Love
great,
Alexis Falcon.
yeah.
She is class.
Did you see the oh god, what was it? The promo she put out? Leave Fleece Boy
Yeah,
alone.
yeah. They're just they're those two are class, absolutely class.
Absolutely.
Love in the world for Sunshine Machine. Two of my favourite people in Brit Wres.
Oh, absolutely. George Lydon is a young lad that Kamikaze have really gone behind. Wrestle Carnival got behind him as well. Top talented young performer in the Midlands area. He's going to have a big match against Jordan Oliver that weekend for Kamikaze Pro. So I believe that's for the Relentless Championship. So that'll be a big match and a big win for him. Richard Holiday is making his debut for Kamikaze Pro that weekend. You've also got Lana Austin defending the women's championship against Aluna Blue. Have you seen Aluna Blue? Or
No, I've not seen her live personally. I'm not sure if she's representative Rev Pro before, at least not in the time I've
not
been watching.
yet. Uh,
But
Very
yeah, the
talented
name
young
a name
performer.
I'm familiar with, but haven't yet had the opportunity to discover.
There is also, of course, the obligatory 30-person, so excuse me, 30-person rumble, the over the top rumble. So I'm sure that is going to be a great show. The men like Doris and Amari are two very talented performers. He hasn't had a fair shake at Rev Pro UK yet. Old man like Doris, he's made a couple of appearances, but he
Yeah,
hasn't quite landed his mark. Amari has done some big things with OTT. I don't think he's made it Rev Pro UK.
I don't think so.
No.
Certainly
But
not in the last couple of years. If he's been around any longer, maybe, but not in the last couple of years. Man like Doris seems to be all over the world at the moment.
yes, he is. I know he's just recently been in competing for GCW
Yeah.
over the last couple of weekends.
He's in
But
the MLW Jersey Cup, I believe, as well.
yes, I think it was it's MLW? Yeah, the Jersey J Cup. He took on Masha Slamovich. I know
Oh
Masha
no,
picked up
sorry,
the win.
sorry. It's the GCW Jersey Cup, isn't it? And it's the
Yeah.
MLW have their the Opera Cup.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I know he's going to be part of quite a few shows during the collective. So yeah, he's somebody who's doing really well for himself. And I think he'll be. It feels like Leon Slater kind of overjumped him, didn't he? And but
yeah,
great tag team when they're together as boisterous behavior. But
yeah. I'd love to see them. I never have, but I would absolutely love to see them together as boisterous behaviour.
fantastic team. And of course, Amari is part of the 0121 along with Dan Maloney. I know Trent Seven's always been quite hot on Amari, so I'm surprised he's not made his way to Rev Pro yet. Speaking of OTT for our Irish fans out there, they're in action on Saturday the 17th. I know Leighton Buzzard will be in action. It seems like it's a show that's going to be featuring a lot of their young guys. Justin Daniels versus Scotty Davis, Jay versus Boots Murphy, Sammy D versus Kian Noonan, Session of Martina and Liamo versus BDE, Renzo Rose, who I know has been getting a lot of praise, teaming with Ilya Zarkov versus the Freshners, Martin Steers and Fabio. I know that again when we had Leighton Buzzard on the show, he was very, very high on what's going on at OTT at the moment, and very, very high on the freshness as the tag team Martin Steers and Fabio. I know they've been over to Italy to face the Brescia Barone Breakers over at
Oh,
Squasher Jobber
love Triple
Wrestling.
B.
Do like
Good
those
lads.
two. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like such an underrated team.
Absolutely. Another big show that is happening on the 18th of February is Sov Pro Wrestling's. They're going to be in action. It's dark and hell is hot, and anybody that uses DMX in their lines
Yeah.
is good with me. As such a, I actually had that album when I was like 16. Brilliant album. If you're wondering why Leon Slater is not defending the Cruiserweight Championship for Rev Pro UK that day, is because he's going to be defending the Commonwealth Championship for Sov Pro in the main event against Jordan Oliver. They've got the mixed match tag team of Ian Skinner and Simon Miller. There's been some great interactions on Twitter from both pair, and it's been a long running story within Sov Pro. They're going to be taking on the tag team champions, the 8-7, Alexander Roth and Roy Johnson. Rory Coyle and RPT in a video store massacre match. I'm sure that's going to be interesting. Leighton Buzzard returns. It's going to be interesting to see how the collective, the group that he's part of in Sov Pro, react to him. That's Kelly Six, Bullet, LA Taylor, and Bronson Reed. Big group. It's a solid group. It's one of my favorite stables in wrestling right now, the collective. Yeston Reese is going to be competing in the Gauntlets of the Gods. He's going to be taking on three different opponents in a gauntlet style match. Yeston Reese, he's been around for 20 years now.
It's what I'm really glad that you said his name because I've never heard his name be said before, and I've always read it and thought I have no idea how to say that person's name. But yeah, there's not someone I'm too familiar with. But you mentioned Kelly Six there, and it was lovely getting to see him return to Rev Pro and do a couple of shows. He was in Portsmouth and Southampton at the tail end of last year, which was really lovely to see because he's a top lad and it's good to see good people getting good spots.
And yeah, another guy who's very underrated. Talking about underrated performances, Brady Phillips is going to be action against Sam Gradwell. This has been something that's been storyline driven since Soft Pro's actual first show. So it's good to see them linking shows together and storylines together, especially for a company so early on. Their production is also hands down one of the top productions in the UK. For a brand new company, Solve Pro have been making lots and lots of waves. Lana Austin versus Lucia Lee will be a great match. Recently announced was CPF, Joe and Danny, just Joe Lando and Danny Black. They're going to be taking on the Quintessentials, which is Hood, who I mentioned earlier, Patrick Quinlan, and his brother Christy Quinlan. I expect, and from what I saw in this match with Jordan Oliver, I really expect this match to probably steal the Soft Pro show. Hopefully, they'll put this show available up on for free on YouTube, which would be very nice. One of the big things is they've got Les Battersby from Coronation Street, I believe.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, very.
yeah, he's apparently going to be doing something with the Banter Bus and Thatcher Wright and his right way. Harley Hudson, who's been a big part of Soft Pro since the beginning, she's also going to be in attendance to do her farewell, as of course she's going to be going off to TNA very
Mm.
soon. So, good luck to Soft Pro. I look forward to hopefully seeing that show on YouTube. A
Sounds
company
like
that's
a
been,
whole variety of stuff on that show.
yeah,
A real
definitely.
mixed bag.
Absolutely.
And then
Uh,
what they say about wrestling being a buffet.
Yeah, you've got to have a little bit of everything. And Riot Cabaret Wrestling in London certainly tend to have that in droves as well. They're going to be in action on the 22nd of February. Main event of Michael Oku, Robbie X, and Leon Slater.
Yeah, tasty. Right, Cabaret's a couple of mates that come to the 229 regularly, Simon and Phil, are always trying to get me to go down to Right Cabaret. Um, I think I spend so much money going to watch Rev Pro that I think I will. It will cost me more than pounds. It will cost me a wife if I pick up another wrestling company. But Right Cabaret sounds like so much fun. Like such a good experience. Such always really solid cards. Always lots of like we said, the buffet of professional wrestling. That sounds like if that's what you're after, Right Cabaret is the place to go.
Absolutely. You got Session Twats, Session with Martina and Charles Crowley versus Lycos Jim. Jay Joshua, another guy I really like. Imagine Samoa Joe and Shigehiro Irie and you squeeze them
Oh.
together. You get Jay Joshua. Brilliant. He's such a nice guy as well. Tate Mayfair's one of the best, I think, heels in the game right now. So annoying, so smarmy, so brilliant. Also, secretly, really nice guy because I've had him on the show a couple of times, but don't tell people that. Sunshine Machine and Connor Mills will be in action, as will Sapphire Reed and the Bryants, Nino and Xander, two very young, talented performers. Ultimate Pro Wrestling in Weymouth. You can get to see Adam Maxted before he goes back to Love Island. He's going to be against Rob Drake, who of course is James Drake's younger brother. Nina Samuels and Lana Austin are going to be facing off against each other, two of the best women wrestlers in the world right now, in my opinion. David Francesco will be in action against Country Big. Eddie Ryan will also be in action, and so will Simon Miller. So that's Ultimate Pro Wrestling, 23rd of February in Weymouth. And then 24th of February, I've got two shows quickly. We've got Tidal Championship Wrestling in Leeds, a great new area for young performers to start playing their trade. They've got the Iron Will tournament featuring Smashing Mike versus Alfie Edwards, Man Like Doris versus Truman Roswell. That's a match I'm really looking forward to. Artemis versus Ace Matthews. Can't wait to see Artemis smash Ace Matthews in the mouth. Vusic, a very talented young performer, Vusic, versus Bauer, who I don't know much about. You've also got Adonis Payne versus Bullet. Adonis Payne, a very talented young performer. Bullet, just huge, big guy. Definitely a lot of talent. And in the main event, you've got Scotty Rourke versus Dara Diablo. Rourke made his Rev Pro UK debut not long
Yeah,
ago.
he did. Yeah, I think it was Portsmouth last year. I think it was the last Rev Pro show that I didn't get to because it was my wife's birthday. I've been to it everyone since, so it must have been November 26th. But yes, yeah, he had a really strong performance, and is someone where it kind of feels inevitable that he was going to turn up in Rev Pro at some point. He's a name that I see a lot. And yeah, he did really well, and hopefully we'll be back again. I think we said about it earlier that Rev Pro is probably the kind of the pinnacle of European wrestling at the moment, and so
Yeah.
I think it's probably for everybody. It's somewhere they want to be wrestling regularly. So it's just filling up those kind of 7 or 8 spots on each card while still kind of staying true to the stories that are being told and the wrestlers that have been invested in for a long time. So a position booking Rev Pro shows that I wouldn't envy. If it feels a little bit like Tony Khan trying to get all of his AEW wrestlers into his kind of free television slots in a week. It's there's a lot to choose from. Um,
But with Rev Pro UK taking over Coventry now, they're beginning to
yes,
expand
yeah, looking
further and
forward to going.
further. they're gonna need the names, and yeah, Scotty Rourke definitely a name that probably should be on the list. Actually, Truman Roswell, a very talented performer and great character as well. Now, the next big weekend is right after the Rev Pro UK weekend because following that, you've got the Progress show, Heavy Metal. It's definitely going to be one of the biggest shows of the year. Obviously, it's going to be the culmination of the Kid Lycos Spike Trevay storyline. Will Lycos finish the story before Cody Rhodes? Yes, he will. He, my, I called it all the way back. I said that Kid Lycos was going to win Super Strong Style 16. Everybody said I was stupid. I was like, no, Lycos is easily going to win Super Strong Style 16. Of course, he did go on to win it. I thought they were going to hold off till Super Strong Style 16. I thought they were going to give it a year, but they've kind of pushed it along. The whole story, the losing the mask, it's been such a great transition for Kid Lycos. He really needed it, in my opinion, to step out of Chris Brooks's shadow. I think he needed to
Mhm.
lose the mask. I think he needed to be a bit more reinvigorated. He's a handsome young lad as well.
Who
I
knew?
I really think he will this time finally finish the story. He will beat Spike Trevay. He will become the Progress World Champion, and I think it's
One
a
of those
long
things
time coming.
where I completely agree with you. I didn't. It. I get that we mentioned it earlier. Sometimes you don't realize how much you want something until it's put in front of you. And I never thought that either Lycos or Lycos 2 needed to lose their masks at any point. I didn't saw anything wrong with it at all. But when Kid Lycos did have the mask taken, suddenly it just felt like a really necessary character development for him.
Yeah,
Um, I haven't. I'll say this about Progress because I don't follow them. I don't have time, sadly, to keep up with anything in Britain outside of Rev Pro. Given how much time I spend to it, um, I think I've got myself to a point now where I'm writing about it daily.
yeah,
But the Lycos and Spike story is something that has absolutely kind of infiltrated my life from going to Rev Pro shows and people in the queues talking about it to it, coming up on the social media and anytime Spike Trevay is talking on social media, everything gets stopped and the volume gets turned up and you have to listen because the man is absolutely incredible. I think he's the best heel in professional wrestling in the UK by a long way at the moment. I think Connor Mills is also a fantastic heel, but he's a very different type of heel to Spike
yeah,
Trevay. Um, and Lycos is an undeniable babyface. He really like the Cody Rhodes story. The comparison is easy to do, but there's actually a lot of similarities there. Not necessarily with Roman and Spike, but with in the having the belt for such a long time and it kind
yeah.
of feeling a little bit sort of like held hostage. But between Lycos and Cody, there's quite a lot there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody envisioned when the match was announced for the I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but it's the illusion the
Yes,
illusion mask, and you just no, I don't think anyone expected it. I think everybody thought it was going to be Cody at WrestleMania going over. But no, they pulled the rug out. And I honestly couldn't believe it. I wondered how they were going to pull it back, and because they had the Thunder Bastard match, he won his chance to get a title shot once more, and yeah, it's been for me, it's been very similar to Jimmy Havoc versus Will Ospreay. Not I hate to bring up
yeah,
Havoc, but he's been part of Progress history, of course, and it's very similar to that Ospreay Havoc situation. I think you've had with Spike and Lycos, and it's been a great story for Progress, and definitely one of their big pluses over the last year or so. Also in action are the Smoking Aces defending the tag team titles against Sanity. I think Nick Riley and Charlie Sterling as the Smoking Aces, probably one of the best tag teams in the world. I really, really just couldn't believe how good they were when they started tagging. They were just such a fluid tag team.
Yep.
It's going to be Alexander Wolf and Big Damo for Sanity. They've been a great sort of like tag team for
Yeah,
Progress.
they've been in progress quite a lot recently, haven't they, over the last sort of like 6 months or so.
Yes. Cheeky little buggers are going to be in action, and they're going to be facing
Love that team name.
Gene Money and a mystery opponent. Simon Miller's going to take on Rob Drake. That's going to be a really interesting match. Man like Reese versus Yoichi. Again, yeah, that's going to be really, really interesting to see how that one plays out. Bullet versus Kid Lycos 2, because of course, alongside everything that's happening with Kid Lycos and Spike Gervais, you've always had Kid Lycos 2 there as well, and
Yep.
Bullet's always been involved, and it's yeah, again, it's been such a plus for Progress. And then they've got two huge women's matches as Rio defends the Progress Championship against her tag team partner now, Emerson Jane. So I'm sure they're going to absolutely smash it. And then in a 2 out of 3 falls match, you've got
Yeah.
Kanji versus Lizzie Evo. They've
That's another
already
match that's really infiltrated my all my social media. Feels like they're building that to be quite the spectacle. It's great to see Kanji in the spot like
Yeah, I think this will be now their third meeting, and their first 2 meetings singles matches were absolutely brilliant. I do believe Lizzie Evo and Kanji, their first match stole the show. I can't remember which show it was, but I know that match stood out head and tails above a lot of other stuff that went down. It's going to be really interesting to see now. Progress have got a partnership with both Pro Wrestling Noah, with Yoichi, of course, coming over, as well as Oizawa. He's being part of the Progress roster now. But also the fact that they've announced a partnership with probably one of the biggest independent promotions in North America, especially that the Canada and that North American scene in Defy Wrestling. Of course, Kenta with the Defy champion right now. They needed to do something big.
that.
If
Yeah,
they have, I don't think they can deny themselves that there has been some drop off from where Progress used to be to where it wasn't. Of course, they had a massive sold out show at the Electric Ballroom last month. Uh, but a lot of that was down to Mustafa Ali versus
yes.
Leon Slater. But it's not because they've had sold out shows, and I assume this cage match between Lycos and Spike Gervais will probably sell out the ballroom. I'm going to be there, in fact, because I'm going to be taking my wonderful wife back down south to see her family, and I'm going to sneak off and see Progress.
You'd
That
imagine
Progress show.
that the novelty of a cage match and a really well built story is gonna the really well built story will draw in the Progress fans who maybe can't afford to go to every show, so they pick and choose. This will be one they pick, and
Yeah.
then maybe you'll draw in some more kind of, I hate the phrase, but casual fans to the show with the novelty of a cage match, and all they've got to do is, they see a cage match advertised, they YouTube Progress, and they see Spike Trey talking. There you go, sold.
Exactly.
Job done. So yeah, you'd imagine that would sell out, and I think you're right. I think that Progress. I look at All In Weekend from last year, and you look at the companies that really sort of like came out fighting, and the that put on the biggest shows that they could that weekend. Rev Pro obviously being one of them. It it stood out a little bit, the
Yeah.
difference in audience sizes, and Progress is a big name. And I said it earlier, I'm a massive Rev Pro mark, but There's no. I have no ill feeling towards any other company. I want every company to do well because at the end of the day, they're all employing the wrestlers that I love watching every week. So I want them to be employed in as many places as possible, getting paid as much money as possible to perform as well as they can for as long as they can, so I can keep enjoying it.
Yeah,
But
I hate
it
those
does feel like
fans that want like you see it sometimes. Oh, I want Progress dead. Or why? Why would you want that? It just
yeah,
seems silly.
and also like learn from history when there was one big American wrestling company, the product was probably at its worst that it ever was.
Yes,
So, what does that tell us? Competition is good for everybody. It makes everybody up their game and it makes everybody work that little bit harder for it. So, yeah, no, it'll be really interesting to see how that relationship works. And will we see Progress wrestlers going out to America? Will we see the Progress banner being kind of shared in across the different companies with Japan and with Defy? So yeah, that will be really really fascinating. And again, it's like we're talking about that sort of like that boom period of European wrestling, but it really does feel like like British wrestling is becoming a bit more of Europe and the wider world in this year with, like you said, the Rev Pro show in Germany and Barcelona coming up, and with Progress going
to
linking up in
WrestleMania.
Japan and linking up in America, and then with the big WWE show in Germany, all in London. Europe is part of the world wrestling scene, and that can only be a good thing for everybody.
Absolutely. There's so much talent across. There is probably more talent now than there was in the last big boom period.
Yeah,
There were a lot of talented wrestlers in the last big boom period. Of course, Will Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. have arguably gone on to become the number one and two wrestlers in the world today. But you could definitely see people like Gabe Kidd, Leon Slater, Callum Newman easily replicating that and becoming three of
yeah.
the best wrestlers in the world. And you forget Dan Maloney's, your George Lydon's, your Robbie X's, your Michael Oku's.
And there's that really exciting kind of generation of wrestlers that are already with your Leon Slaters and even with guys like Cameron Kai, who that I'm familiar with from Rev Pro, but I'm sure there's lots of them
Amazing
all over
young
the
talent.
country where
Mm.
you're already starting to see that the guys who are pushing 30 have got 25-year-olds on their tail, and the 25-year-olds have got 20-year-olds on their tail. And it's not just a case of one or two really talented people drawing attention to a scene. There's a whole range of
Mm.
people who are like sharing the spotlight together, and the quality of the wrestling in this country is second to none.
And
And I
we've got
think
all
that,
those amazing veterans back now because NXT
yeah, and
UK
that can
collapsed.
only make things like
Shaw
even better.
Samuels, Eddie Dennis, all those guys coming back, they've really helped to elevate the scene
Oh,
just as
100%.
much.
I mean, I've been lucky to see Shah live probably a dozen times now in the last year. Everyone that he wrestles is a better wrestler for having wrestled him. I remember he had a match with Will Caven last year in Portsmouth. I don't know when. It wouldn't have been much. It wouldn't have been long after the Revolution Rumble.
Mm.
Um, and I remember watching it and just realizing, like, I mean, I think Will Caven is a really, really underrated wrestler. If you watch him closely, what he does in the ring, everything he does is represents the struggle, and it's all the little details. But his match with Shaw was the first time where I really saw that. But
Mm.
what I love is I've seen it in every match he's had since. It's like he's taken something and it's now with him for everything. I was talking to Trent Seven at the end of a 229 show. I think it was the January one, and he was just reeling off the names of the guys. Where he was like, I haven't worked Gabe Kidd yet. I haven't had a one-on-one match with Luke Jacobs yet. I
Mm.
haven't had one-on-one match with name after name, and you're like, wow, like these guys are all going to benefit from wrestling you, but also I am going to pay my money to come and watch those matches because these are wrestlers who have not only the talent, but the experience and the hard yards and all the lessons that they've learned. And it's only going to make everybody else on the scene that much better. Grizzled young veterans
Of
versus True and
course, yeah.
Lacey, for example. Like True and Lacey, we talked about earlier as people who are really, really taking over the scene at the moment and wrestling everywhere. But getting in the ring with Zach Gibson and James Drake, like that
Going to be
is
huge for
only going to
them.
make them even better wrestlers, isn't it?
I'm still waiting for that grizzled young vets versus greedy souls match because
Oh
you
yeah,
just know that's going to be brilliant.
that's going to be so good.
I'm sure it'll come soon enough. It's an incredible scene right now. You know, we talked about the last 2 weeks. We've talked about the next 2 weeks. It's going to be insane. You can check all of these promotions out. A lot of them have their on-demand services. Some of them are showing shows free on YouTube. Some of them, are paid for on demand. But it's worth it. If you're not going to be able to get to the shows as much as you
Yeah,
want, there's definitely ways means to watch it. I believe WXW are still on the WWE network, so you can even check WXW out that way. And just as we always say, support independent wrestlers, support independent promoters, support independent wrestling podcasts, and support just everyone. And remember, the last thing, as we always say, don't feed the trolls. Oh, Dave, plug yourself. Plug your website one more time.
yeah. If you love Revolution Pro Wrestling as much as I do, www.davethemark.com. Daily content going up, and then also I always say if you want to get in touch, you can do socials at Dave the Mark on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok is at Dave.the.mark. But more importantly, buy a Rev Pro ticket and come and say hello, and we'll have a drink at the bar together and we'll talk about wrestling. That's what I'm here for.
That's the way to do it. And again, we're going to repeat it. Just remember, folks, don't feed the trolls.